SentinelOne co-founder and CEO Tomer Weingarten is a revolutionary visionary in the security market, using AI and automation to provide real-time endpoint protection, and that has forever changed the security landscape. But it's not only his technology prowess that sets him apart, it's his commitment to a 100% channel model. Please welcome to the stage SentinelOne co-founder and CEO Tomer Weingarten.
Woo, woo, woo. Woo! Okay.
Good morning, everybody. Hello.
Thanks for doing it.
Absolutely.
Good morning. Have a seat. Thank you so much for being here.
Absolutely, my pleasure.
So, SentinelOne has very strong Israeli roots, and we had you here 2 years ago, just after the October 7th attack in Israel. And now you're here again, just as the last of the hostages have been released, and peace seems to be on the horizon. So I just wanted to ask about how you reacted when you heard the news that the hostages had been freed, and also what it's been like running a company with this device of war raging in the background.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, such joy, right? I mean, across the country, it's really unbelievable, and this is such a happy coincidence, that I've been here 2 years ago, and now I'm here with this amazing closure. So really, I mean, we're all just completely overjoyed. I mean, we were kind of paused for 2 years as a nation, and obviously the hard work starts now, and peace is something that you need to make sure is lasting, and I think that's always the challenge in the Middle East. And it's been challenging, but Israeli people are incredibly resilient. If you're in Israel, you probably lived through at least a couple of wars, sadly enough, and hopefully this will be the last. But there's no question that when you see, and this is also true, I guess, to our business, when you see evil triumphs, it annoys you, right? I mean, it's not the natural course of things, like at least for us good people, and just seeing this come to a closure is it's amazing. It's amazing for our people, specifically in Israel. It's amazing for the threat landscape. It's amazing, I think, for the level of disinformation and global anti-Semitism that we're seeing. And hopefully those are going to dissipate as well. There's multiple facets to this war that has been ongoing. So let's just hope that this will usher in more kind of a global, peaceful time. The Middle East is the axis of many different conflicts, and it's actually a very interesting tilt point, I think, in overall geopolitics. So a lot is at play, and just a great moment. To your question, what we were doing, dancing with the kids.
Oh, wonderful. Thank you.
Wonderful.
So now we can talk about security. The threat landscape, attacks continue to rise. What's your view of the threat landscape today, and what do you see as the most troubling threats?
Yeah, I mean, there's no question that the threat landscape forever has been something that's been evolving. It's been just, getting more sophisticated with time. There's no point in time where we say, oh, the threat landscape now is much, much better, right? And I think it's obviously even, more true today with attackers harnessing generative AI, harnessing everything that we're trying to harness as defenders and as generally as the industry. But obviously, attackers always have this unfair advantage where they don't need to do quality control. They don't need to worry about scale. They don't need to make sure it's super accurate and it doesn't do anything bad. It actually works great if it does. So, there's always that unfair advantage that attackers have. We're seeing attackers just leverage AI, I would say, in two main approaches. One, get stuff done faster and at more scale. So basically run, deploy, infiltrate, exfiltrate, do all of it in the course of a minute, right? I mean, we're talking about, for years in this industry, we've been talking about dwell times that were maybe days, weeks and all of that. That's kind of going away. And I think what you're seeing right now is from the point of figuring out there's an exploit to the point of entry to the point of exit, you can look at a completely automated attack that takes a minute. So that's one thing we're seeing, and I think a lot of what you see us doing, the stuff maybe we'll talk about today, is geared towards not just bringing another product for cybersecurity, an amazing silver bullet to deal with that, but really understanding that you require a whole new architecture to deal with real-time attacks, and ones that in most enterprises today doesn't exist. Most enterprises today, most businesses today don't even have the level of visibility and the latency required to even address an attack that takes 1 minute to come to life and to go away. So thinking about how we provide a new architecture that starts with collecting the data, starts with obviously processing and then orchestrating response in as close as can be to real time, that is the mission, I think, for us and probably for many other vendors right now, on just how do we deal with what's going to be coming, knowing that a minute today will turn into seconds tomorrow, and the breadth of it is not going to subside.
So talk a little more about this new architecture and what it should look like, what these channel partners should be telling their customers about it, how they should be planning for it.
Yeah, we made an acquisition, a couple of acquisitions, but let's talk about, architecture. And data pipelines are, to me, probably one of the most important ingredients as you think about what's next in my security stack. It's really clear that everybody has hundreds of security controls and hundreds of security products in their environment. I think it's totally unrealistic to think that somebody's going to come in and deploy this magical platform that's going to replace all of that. That's not going to happen. And our role, I think, has shifted, from giving you, tremendous endpoint protection to now helping you make more of the security investments that you already have. So in essence, if you think about it, if you had a way to connect all these products in a very, very seamless way, take all the telemetry that stems off of them, even from your SIEM, everywhere that you have data, you want a super easy capability to deploy something that will connect all the dots, unify the data, start streaming it. And if you can do all of that in a real-time streaming fashion, then the question becomes, okay, I have now this visibility. I'm able to cross-correlate all these different data points. Now, can I apply AI in real time as the data is streaming so I can find all these issues that might exist in the environment? And now that I've found those issues, can I orchestrate autonomous or close to autonomous action to then go back and say, I've seen something with my email provider that correlates to my network firewall. Can I now understand what intelligent action needs to happen? And can I now click OK and have that action take place across my entire enterprise stack? So you're thinking about, what we do today with taking a data pipeline directly to a real-time data lake and then to real-time hyper-automation. You have the components to close that loop. And obviously, our job is also to build the logic to help you do that. I think that giving building blocks in cybersecurity is a great thing, and then you kind of offload, you offload the problem to the channel partner, to the service provider, and to the customer. But if we as a vendor can come in and say, we can give you the logic, we can make this more automatic. So the role for the service provider, for the channel partner, is to come in and deploy and then supervise. And I think this is the big shift we're going to see with AI, is that it's going to be less about, hey, let's tweak, let's do these things, let's manage. There's a lot of nitty-gritty work that goes into it. And then just focus on, we have a system, it's running, we're maybe supervising some of the actions, but then they turn more and more automatic. So maybe in 12 or 24 months from today, we're all sitting here and there's almost an autonomous or semi-autonomous decision-making brain that is orchestrating everything you have in your network environment, basically. Everything from the cloud to on-premise. You just want visibility, you want control, and you want to do it at a scale that today is practically impossible. If you think about the existing solutions that folks have today to deal with petabytes, sometimes exabytes of data, none of these solutions were designed to do that. If you look in your existing, SIEM, which is the thing that was supposed to be that thing that centralizes everything, not everything is in it. It's supposed to be something that helps us react to attacks. It's sometimes hours late with the alerts that you see in it. Querying, for different events takes sometimes, batch processing that is, again, if we're talking about a threat landscape that happens in minutes, 15 minutes, 1 hour to get back the results of a query, that's a non-starter. So when we think about what's required, I think it's more architecture than a single silver bullet product. And then it's all about, can we apply the most autonomous type of algorithm to be able to then have security almost run by itself. But obviously then the role of the human is to come in, to employ judgment, to make sure that we supervise the actions that are more verbose, that are more intrusive, but really let AI deal with a whole gamut of things. I'll give you one small example that has been, I think, front and center in the past couple of years. You probably have heard about this thing called cloud security. And cloud security or CSPM, it's this system that you deploy in the cloud and it's supposed to, not entirely sure what it's supposed to do, but it's probably supposed to make you more secure in some way. And it's centered on basically understanding what type of misconfigurations you have and then giving you long lists of remediation steps to go and try and kind of plug all these holes. I think that we're not too far from the day where you can basically point a pretty, significantly trained security LLM on your, let's say, AWS environment or G-Cloud environment or Oracle or whatever it is, and basically say, show me the misconfigurations, okay, show me the plan to remediate them. You go step by step and you click OK, and it's pretty much done. So I think a lot of the stuff that we've been selling, deploying, implementing in the past decade even, I think a lot of it is going to become either irrelevant or if you're leaning on it, you're probably just not doing stuff fast enough and efficient enough. And I think that's really where we see AI and kind of I would say the inception of agentic capabilities, because that's also kind of level set it for everybody. Nobody is deploying like mega production scale agentic stuff that does mission critical things. It's not yet there. But at the same token, I think it's really clear to see the potential. And I think it's really clear to see that you can start automating narrow tasks, things that are more defined in nature. And that's going to take away from, I think all of these manual work, 2 hours to do something type of a thing. It's going to free up cybersecurity professionals to really deal, I think, with, the most important stuff that they have. Nobody, has enough security professionals. Nobody has free time. So I think, these agentic workloads are designed to help us just streamline our work and do it in a better, more efficient manner. It's not still AI to generate more revenue. I think it's AI to get more efficient, which in turn, will bring more revenue to the bottom line.
Yeah. Talk about cloud security. We had Jay Chowdhury here yesterday from Zscaler. He talked about a future where SIM goes away. How does that ring to you?
I think so. Yeah, it's pretty true. I think that there's the notion of the SIM as it's designed today with like all these dashboards and nice things and normalization and indexing and schemas and all of that stuff. I think that goes away. And I think that you kind of don't need that layer. You need to move to kind of a meta layer, I would say, almost like a meta platform that will just, again, help you onboard data in the most seamless way, in the easiest way. This is why, when we looked at Observo, we looked at about 15 different companies that were doing something in the data pipeline space, and seeing a company that does it in a complete AI native way, where you don't need to maintain all these connectors and you can get up and running within a week. When was the last time that somebody here deployed an enterprise scale production system for security in a week? That stuff rarely happens, but I truly believe we're moving into a world where it's getting more and more democratized, and you'll be able to deploy things, with ease, see almost immediate customer value, and then obviously turn on or off whatever ingestion, whatever processing you want on those data streams. By the way, when we think about Observo, it's not necessarily about, hey, I'm going to give you a data pipeline to route all the data to me. No, I mean, we're not about that. Some vendors, I mean, they're kind of a closed garden. For us, it's giving customers the freedom to route data anywhere they want, and to optimize data, and to save money, and filter data, and make sure that they're not drowning in useless data. So it's really about creating a world where you get the data you need, and then you can take action. Right now, it's just not the case by any degree.
I found this both interesting and frightening. Some of the researchers in your lab recently discovered LLM-enabled malware, which is malware that has an LLM directly integrated into it and can create threats right on the fly. Can you talk about how big of a leap forward is this for malware, and how do you protect against it?
Yeah, it wasn't surprising one bit. We were kind of looking to see when that's going to happen. The good news is that to detect malware, to detect anything that runs on the endpoint, EDR is still a very, very effective tool. Like that's the thing, call it AI or not, we've been doing AI for the past decade. So in the EDR front, and while again, I would not advise that EDR is a bulletproof type of a thing, but the level of visibility that EDR solutions or modern EDR solutions bring to the picture today really gives you the tools to deal with anything that really comes on the endpoint at the end of the day. LLM-based attacks are only going to get, I think, more prevalent. It does provide for another level of obfuscation and polymorphism for malware-based attacks or payload-based attacks. Right now, it's a bit, I would say, it's kind of improv mode, I would say. So it's relatively easy to detect the dependencies and see it behave in a different way. But it's going to get more and more sophisticated. I think it's going to make our life as an endpoint provider harder. But that's our job, right? I mean, that's what we do every single day. EDR is not a thing that you build and then, great, let's go do something else, right? I mean, EDR is something that is changing on a daily basis. When you read about, there's a bypass for this, or there's a new attack here, largely within minutes, we are already, evolving our EDR to address anything new that comes up. So unlike the antivirus kind of age where, you had a bypass, it took weeks for that stuff, sometimes never, to get better. EDR is a real-time thing. EDR is real-time reaction. EDR is something that, for modern providers like, maybe us and our peers, it's something that is totally live. There's teams of people, teams of reverse engineers. They're constantly feeding the system that's constantly monitoring hundreds of millions of devices and workloads globally. So it's a very, very different system, and it's one that I think is primed to, at least be in the position to stop more advanced attacks. It's also what's fueling everything we just discussed in terms of call it the data renaissance. At the end of the day, 70% of the most valuable data that you typically find in like a SIEM system today comes from EDR endpoint solutions. So I don't think there's any surprise when you see the leading EDR players are now going to lead kind of the data lake, the SIEM story, because look, we've been dealing with all this data for a long, long while. We've changed the equation of what you need to see, what good visibility looks like. So, I kind of believe we have the rite of passage here to continue and kind of take that vision to full fruition.
Yeah, I'm going to ask one more and then I'll give it to you, Steve. When you were at RSA earlier this year, you put a real major emphasis on this idea that there is a risk for both partners and customers as they try to kind of anticipate the agentic AI risk that they might get locked into something, and then that agentic approach is going to change so quickly that whatever they've just done becomes obsolete. Can you talk about the threat that poses?
Yeah, I mean, we've seen that already, right? I mean, we've seen, folks kind of buy into, actually on the productivity side, I would say more than in security, but they buy into this promise, I'm going to get this chatbot and then it's going to do everything for me. And, a month passes, 2 months passes, 3, 4, 5, and then they don't really see the gains. I think the good news is that it seems like a lot of folks are ready to continue and experiment. They understand we're in this experimentation stage. They understand that they cannot be left behind. So they cannot allow themselves even to say, I already invested in something and I'm seeing kind of okay yields. I will not go and experiment with anything else. I think that largely people, are kind of finding ways to continue and invest and do more. So that's the good news. I think the not so good news is that there's still a high degree of confusion. There's a huge degree of architecture where, people are kind of talking in concepts and in possibilities. And yeah, in a lab, you can achieve a lot, right? In these sanitized, nice environments where everything goes well. Yes, I mean, absolutely, it's amazing. But then you go into a production environment, or you try to go in a production environment, or try to do things in a slightly bigger scale, and it's not as trivial. And then what I've seen is that people just go back and kind of go narrow and more narrow to just find something that might be like a nice workflow you can automate. And then I think what you're seeing today is that most of these end up as something that maybe you could have done without AI at all, just with some intelligent automation. But sprinkle some agentic to it, and it sells well. And I think even internally, people get more excited about it. But now comes the other part. So you're deploying these things, and this is the second big theme in cybersecurity. I think the first theme in cybersecurity that we talked about, it's this, kind of data harmonization, the data architecture, autonomous operations, getting to the point that we can do security in real time in the most autonomous manner that the technology allows us to do it today. So theme number one, revamping the SOC, thinking about the meta platform, maybe saying goodbye to the SIEM. We'll see. All of it will take time. The second theme is, given everybody is now adopting more and more generative AI, how do you do that in a secure manner, right? I mean, how do you make sure that when you deploy these agents, when you let your employees, use any type of generative AI gateway, whether it's an online service, a product, through the browser, through the endpoint, through an app, how do you make sure that's secure? How do you know even what they're doing with it? So the secure adoption of generative AI is the second biggest theme in cybersecurity. And it's exactly why we made the acquisition of Prompt Security. And Prompt Security had such an amazing product and so differentiated in this space and so complementary to the endpoint footprint that we already have, where basically they built this amazing, instantly working solution that once you deploy on the endpoint, side by side with an EDR solution, you can gain immediate visibility into every operation between that endpoint and the user that's using it, and into any AI gateway whatsoever, including complete visibility into the data that's being put into the model and that the model is giving back to the human. So it's a complete two-way data leak prevention system that is completely AI native and gives you, once you deploy it, you see immediately all the AI usage in any given enterprise environment. I mean, to us as a customer, I can tell you that was amazing. I mean, you suddenly have this visibility where I think most people today deal with generative AI adoption in two manners. One, they pray that they know everything, and they typically do not know everything. And two, they block it, or they try and block it, and they think they blocked it, but there are so many different ways, and there are so many things that today just work by themselves in any given enterprise environment, that if you don't start gaining visibility into what's happening, you're just going to find yourself in a pretty significant disadvantage, because people are sharing data with these models on a daily basis. That's happening. I'm not saying anything radical here. You have no idea what data. You have no idea if there's PIIs in there, sensitive data. You have no idea where this data is going to end up. You have no idea who can access it out from the model. You have no idea what type of guardrails there are for the AI gateways that your employees are using. So that's why, for us, Prompt Security was just like an aha moment that says, I mean, it's on the endpoint, it's DLP, it's a huge market in itself. We can help any customer out there. They already have very, very large customers. So you're talking about, some of the biggest, financial institutions in the world already using their technology at scale. And I think the moment we announced it, I mean, the amount of demand we got was look, we've made, I think, 6, 7 acquisitions by now. Forgive me for not knowing the exact count. I've never seen so much excitement and so much demand coming like a week post-acquisition. So we're very excited about that. We're very, very excited for the channel ecosystem, to kind of take these products and kind of address kind of a hot right now, issue and something you can deploy right now and show value right now and really focus on outcomes for customers. So beyond all the noise out there and glitzy AI, laden presentations, there's this thing that you can deploy and you can show customers value immediately. So it goes beyond the talk to really kind of show, hey, we can help in a tangible way. And that's obviously an extension of our platform and something that there is literally no customer that can say, no, I don't need it. They might need something of a different flavor, but they need something to help them secure the usage of generative AI.
That's what these guys like to hear. Go ahead, buddy.
Tomer, you talked about the evolution of the technology. Let's talk about the evolution of the channel. How do you see the rapid changes in AI technology with agentic AI impacting the MSSP or the security solution provider business model in areas like increased automation, fewer security analysts, next generation SOCs? What's the next evolution of the channel with this real-time, autonomous, agentic AI security era we're entering into?
Yeah, look, I think it's a tremendous thing for the channel. I think it's MSSP providers, the art of the possible for them just went from, managing EDR and kind of, using platforms like ours to now being in the position with the EDR provider to manage the entire enterprise security stack. I mean, that's a 10x opportunity for every single MSP provider. So if they adopt that mindset that says, I've been managing your endpoint footprint with EDR in a complete cloud native way, and it's been going great, right? I mean, EDRs have been a tremendous source of growth for MSSP partners. We know because obviously we work with a lot of them. And now that they have that endpoint footprint and they already have the platform, you can basically, with a flip of a switch, now say, okay, let me now connect more data sources, more footprints into my existing platforms. And all the policies I've had in place, all these capabilities that I've been used to from an EDR perspective, I now get it for any other new data source that I connect into the environment. So when you think about the opportunity, it goes from, hey, I'm a great MSP, I can deal with endpoint security for you, and I can deal maybe with other footprints, but I need to deploy a different product, and then I need this management thing, and I need to manage it in across 5 different things. And some MSPs are building like kind of custom-made solutions to kind of orchestrate all these different solutions they have. I think with this move towards more autonomous data lakes and the data pipelines, they can easily say, okay, let me just connect all of it to the platform I've been using. I think arguably EDR has been the most automated solution in the market for a while. It's something that, for the most part, at least for SentinelOne, when you deploy, And maybe you configure it, in the first kind of, call it 30 days of operation, but after that, it works. That's it. So when you think about what they can do now with data lakes, it's doing that across every other footprint. It doesn't replace the products that are deployed, the controls that are deployed, but at the same time, it gives them the ability to manage everything from one simple place. And if you add, hyper automation capabilities to it, I think this is where MSSPs need to start getting really, really smart, because hyper automation is where they can take all the workflows, all the work that they've been doing manually for years, and with drag and drop, design how they do it in a complete automated workflow. So now all these repetitive tasks, all these validation tasks, everything that they've been doing, they can now do automatically and across every footprint. So to me, I mean, if they're able to really internalize that and to learn, because I think it is kind of a new technology stack, they'll be able to benefit more than almost anybody else in this AI generation, because customers are not going to figure it out themselves. I think that's why MSSPs are so powerful as it is, right, and channel partners. So if the channel ecosystem kind of, matures to the point that it can also start automating for the customer, I think this is just a huge workload that they can monetize, and they got all the technology to do it. So as far as I'm concerned, I'm giving you all the bits and pieces to build a whole new business for the next generation, basically. And it's kind of building blocks that you can figure out how to use. We're, doubling down with our channel ecosystem. We're designing a new next generation plan for everybody that will include all of these different components, data ingestion, data orchestration, obviously the data lake, and we want to teach them. So we're going to kind of beef out our university capabilities, our cyber university, to make sure that we can show folks what's actually possible and what their opportunity really looks like. And if they can then embrace it, then they become the enabler for generative AI adoption, which is big. I mean, instead of it being, innately a vendor like IBM or ServiceNow, we want to make sure it's distributed and democratized so it gets to every business and they can implement it for every business. So that to me is the opportunity. The mid-market, in cybersecurity, and we're now talking about the endpoint security TAM and the SIEM TAM and data analytics and all these different components, MDR, all that stuff, that's $100 billion market opportunity. All of it, or I would say the majority of it, doesn't sit in the Fortune 500.
Yeah.
It sits in that long tail that you all serve. So remembering that, just paints the picture of what the opportunity is. By the way, last thing I'll say about it is that don't forget that there's still more opportunity in the core endpoint space.
Yeah.
There is still a lot of runway in the core endpoint space to go after, kind of the more olden antivirus kind of, EDR Gen 1 type of providers. And customers are looking for ways to basically, just move into something that's more automatic, just more modern, faster, I would say, and just better protection, obviously. So I think that just translates into a tremendous opportunity in automation. It crosses over from just being the security play to being security and automation, and then you can really help folks think about how they're adopting generative AI. Because I think there's one thing that's holding back generative AI right now, and that is security, and rightfully so.
Yeah.
These things are too free form, so that's the opportunity. That's the challenge and the opportunity.
So Tomer, how do partners get their arms around this? How do they start? What investments should they make right now? Is it start with prompt? What do you do?
They should really kind of talk to their customers, I think. And I think that prompt is super easy. It's something that you deploy immediately, and you'll see if you get value or not. And I can almost guarantee you'll see the value. And I think it's an easy conversation to have with customers today. We're seeing that. And again, it's a great complement to the endpoint footprint that we already control today. You can deploy it side by side. Or EDR and endpoint management capabilities can deploy it for you. So it's super, super easy. I think when you think about the data lake, the data pipeline opportunity, that's where I think you need to have another level of understanding the architecture.
Yeah.
But even there, I think that when you just deploy in discovery mode even, and kind of show, hey, you know what, let me connect to your Splunk data source for a second, and let me show you that you have 60% data duplication, and that all these things can go away, and you can click here and start filtering your data and optimizing your data. So you can also think about those migrations as something that's more gradual. It doesn't have to be this, one and done type of an approach where people say, okay, I'm going to spin up a year-long migration plan for you, and let's go and take out this product and all that stuff. I don't believe in that. I think things are going to be much more gradual in nature, and that's what something like Observo and the data pipeline gives you, is that ability to say, hey, let's start with something, and from there we can keep going.
One last question, I'll hand it to you, Jen. Can you talk about the investment you're making in this new partner program? How big an investment? Where are you putting the dollars to get the channel to where it needs to be? And how big a investment are you making there?
Yeah, look, next year is going to be a big year for us. We just crossed $1 billion in ARR, which is, it's pretty amazing because that kind of puts us in kind of the top 10 of all cybersecurity providers. If you factor in our growth, that puts us, I think, in the realm of like top 3 in the world. So that's really, really amazing to see just the traction and the growth. And when we think about that scale, obviously we are looking at a complete different customer estate. I mean, a much, much broader capability set and customer estate as we go into next year. And we also have new ways to sell our platform. So we just introduced our Flex pricing program, which really allows you to just go in and sell just one time the platform and let customers take whatever they want via that structure. And we've seen, obviously, it's been very effective with others. So we just launched it. We did kind of a soft launch with a few select partners going into next year. We obviously want to incentivize, channel partners to use that structure more and more. It's going to be incredibly yielding for them. So we're changing also, how we think about margins. We're changing also how we think about teaming up with channel partners globally. So we are now kind of moving from, we've always been this tremendous company, tremendous technology, but we were, a fast-coming upstart. Now, we're talking about a scaled player, and that's also going to reflect in, what we do with the channel. So I would, assume that you're going to see us double down significantly. I would assume that you see us get, and I would say like more aggressive with our Flex program and, make it more lucrative for channel partners. I think naturally it's going to be more lucrative for channel partners because it really allows customers to take anything on the platform with such ease of use. And today our platform has about 30 different capabilities. So it's a pretty significant platform. If you think about sub capabilities, you're probably reaching like 100. So it's a very significant platform. We got a full cloud security stack. We got full EDR, vulnerability management, MDR capabilities, SIEM solutions, data pipelines, data orchestration with hyperautomation. And I'm probably forgetting like a whole bunch of those. Yeah. So Gen AI DLP, right? Yeah. I mean, you're just talking about all of those. So there's a lot that, our customers can consume from the platform today. And I think this is kind of the inflection point for us where the channel needs to start kind of using us as a full platform solution and kind of all the gains that they can get from it versus selling a great EDR, which they can still do. But at the same time, I mean, if they already sold EDR, the opportunity for our EDR customer to expand is incredibly significant. We're seeing that today. I mean, 50% of the business that we do comes from customer expansion, and 50% comes from new logos. So the ability for partners to continue and onboard new logos and to continue and expand and upsell and cross-sell is very, very significant, especially with endpoint adjacent capabilities like Prompt. These are just classic expansion vectors.
Yeah.
I want to ask you a little bit about Microsoft. Last year we had the CrowdStrike outage, and after that, Microsoft delivered a private preview of Windows endpoint security platform with a user mode alternative to kernel access. How does that change the impact for SentinelOne and the security market in general? And did that help or did it hurt?
It didn't hurt. I think it hurt a lot of customers, but it didn't really hurt us. I think in terms of the architectural changes, I mean, what everybody needs to understand, these are long haul changes. Like there's nothing that can happen tomorrow, and it's going to take some significant time in re-architecture to get to the point that there's no, kernel involvement for endpoint security products. We're all trying to get there. I think that some of the components need to move outside the kernel for that vendor. We always had a very, very different architecture where what we do in the kernel is the complete bare minimum, and then everything else we do naturally in user space. If you don't need to have it in the kernel, don't put it in the kernel. It's the most sensitive spot in the endpoint. So it's been kind of, I would say, architecturally speaking, no news for us. Like we always, kind of felt that that should be the architecture to begin with. Let's say on kind of the Apple operating system, on Mac OS, that's already the way it works. So it's closed down. You have specific kernel interfaces. It's incredibly stable. And I think just in terms of what customers are looking to do today, and since the outage, I think there's obviously a much bigger focus on resilience. Now, by the way, everybody has outages, right? But also not all outages have been created equal. And I think that the type of outage that we've seen through that global catastrophe is the worst kind of outage. I mean, it's an outage with no redundancy, no resilience, no backup, no ability to do anything. It was world shutdown. And I think that was the very disorienting different things that for customers, they were like, how can this happen? All other outages that you see today, I mean, it's just a much more resilient architecture where the more you build the capability for these systems to be self-healing and autonomous, then you're kind of underwriting this situation that something will go wrong and or you're going to lose connectivity or the cloud's going to be down or whatever it is. So I think, it's hard to think these days in there's never going to be an outage or there's never going to be a breach or there's never going to be something. It's always, assume that something bad is going to happen, build the mitigations in place, make sure you reduce the risk as much as possible. But, clearly, that event, opened up the conversation again on what resilience need to look like. Really proud, to have onboarded significant customers throughout that. And, just generally, I mean, our ability today to step in, into a large-scale enterprise environment and deploy the best security in the world is practically unparalleled. I mean, the agents that we have today deployed on critical environments. I mean, you think about some of the largest enterprises in the world, from the biggest telcos to the biggest, airlines to the biggest car manufacturers to anybody and everybody really. And these are fully resilient, autonomous systems on the endpoint that even if you disconnect them from your network, socket, or you have no cloud connectivity, you're still protected. It's still working. It's still doing the work. And I think that's incredible, right? I mean, even if you have any form of outage, the entire logic, the decision-making brain is embedded on your endpoint, and it's protecting you at any given moment. And that, to me, is the story of resilience. That's how you design, hyper-resilient systems. And that goes through everything we do. So, to us, I started this conversation with architecture, and we're kind of ending it up with architecture. It's all about resilience. It's all about speed. It's all about, the customer outcome at the end of the day.
Yeah. I think we have time for one more question. And I actually wanted to ask about, in all of your free time, you spend a significant amount of time working on the board of trustees for Palo Alto University, which focuses on psychology and counseling. And you've talked a lot about the mental health crisis that we're seeing here in this era. Can you just talk about why mental health is an important topic for you? And also, what role do you see technology playing in the future of care?
Yeah, it's a huge topic. And I think that it's becoming even more important with generative AI, because what we're seeing today is that none of us really understand the impact of generative AI. Much like we did not understand the impact of social media, call it 10 years ago, we now are all, free to use all these different systems, and we do not understand what are the societal impacts. And I'm not talking about like the doomsday scenario where AI shuts all of us down. Not saying that it's not fully plausible, but not talking about that. I'm really talking about how our mind evolves as we use these systems. And I think that what we're seeing is just more and more disparity in how each of us are kind of carving their own way, and the impact that is that's being imprinted upon us in this day and age. And this is where it also crosses over to cybersecurity, because I think what a lot of us don't realize today is that our consumption of information through digital means today, and then by proxy through ChatGPT or through whatever it is so pervasive that we don't even stop to question how legitimate is the information that we're consuming. We sometimes know that what we're consuming is not legitimate. It doesn't negate a lot of the impact that it has on our mind. Like if I talk to you about a complete frivolous concept and I tell you it's frivolous, you still have heard about the concept, right? So there is impact even to data that you think, that you know is totally not legitimate, will still have an imprint on you. And then when you see the level of disinformation and you see the level of propaganda and you see the level of hidden interest, hidden agenda that most folks don't always realize, I think what we're seeing today online is such a huge crisis, and there's going to be some impact on just our own mental cognitive capability. So with Palo Alto University, I think one of the missions is both how do we do enough research to find and highlight all these problems, and then to your point, what's the role of technology, and how can we actually fuse the profession of mental health and make it more embedded into tools like ChatGPT. So instead of ChatGPT pretending to be, a therapist, and you have no idea what the yield or, what's going to come out of it eventually. And we've already seen one case, when a teen took his life. That's obviously the worst case of it all. You want to make sure that you're embedding professionals inside of these models as experts, and you're building the right guardrails that come from the right research. But right now, there's not enough research, there's not enough control, there's not enough guardrails. So the advantage of having PAU is that PAU sits in Palo Alto, in Silicon Valley, with all of us, tech companies. So it's well situated at the very, very least. But it's a huge cause, and it's something that I hope will get better in time. But we need more people pushing that direction for sure.
Great.